Listen up. I have three programming tips when it comes to GM programming errors. Three things that should be common knowledge, or you should have a good grasp of, but many people don't. And even I have to remind myself sometimes, hey, check the basics here. So when things go wrong, we always gotta check the basics. What's up, everybody? It's Brian Mann here, hands-on auto training. End of day. This is December 23rd, 2021. I am feeling a bit better, thank goodness. Back to nearly full swing here. So listen up. My first job of the day was a 2010 Chevy Malibu, and this had a brand new transmission control module installed in it. I went to program it under the replace and program procedure on SPS. Just so you know, this is a sequential programming, so you're going to do the ECM and TCM at the same time. And this started programming. It was doing the ECM side of things, and it locked up. It just got really silly. And usually GM SPS will air out and try two more times. This was on the second attempt, and it basically locked up solid. So when things go wrong in your programming in GM, number one, do not turn the key off. You cannot turn the key off until you're out of all of your other options, okay? Trust me on this. I have bricked many computers in my day. I mean, I've been programming for 12 years or something now? And I know for a fact, if I turn that key off, there's a very good chance that that computer's not going to come back to life if the GM programming procedure process did not complete. The second thing I do is verify proper battery voltage. I have had programming stop or air out mid-program. I haven't had this happen with SPS2, but I've had it happen with SPS1 where basically the programming stops, it airs out. The interface device, I think I was using MDI1 at the time, would start blinking and you could see it was low voltage, and I had a bad connection with my battery maintainer, and I wiggled it and it sparked, and then I started the process again and everything went through. So always maintain the proper battery voltage and verify that. Guys, I carry a multimeter in my little diagnostic programming bag that goes with me everywhere, and if I ever have the slightest bit of question, I'll actually test at the battery or at two different points away from my charger connectors just to make sure the the vehicle battery has proper voltage. Number three, take a peek around for aftermarket accessories, radios, remote starts, what do you call them, the GPS disablers. Any aftermarket accessories that could be tied into the network can mess up your GM programming. I've had dozens and dozens of times that I've found something aftermarket on the system after I started programming and it airs out. And if it's a GM radio, or should I say if it's an aftermarket radio on a GM, usually just pulling the radio fuse and hitting the retry button will take care of it. Other times I've had to get into actually on some of the Class 2 networks, I've actually not turned the key off. I do not turn the key off, but I disconnect a Splice Pack 205 or the comb that ties all the networks together and just tie the DLC directly to the engine control module and hit retry and it'll go through. So guys, do not give up. The one thing I can tell you with GM programming is when it airs out, many times persistence will pay off. I think this was many years ago. I had one of my technicians that worked for me in the field. He was using, I believe he was using MDI1 or a J-Box. I can't recall what he was using. I think he had an MDI1. He was programming like a 2005 or 2004 Chevy Trailblazer, and it kept on airing out. It would get to different points and air out. We never turned the key off, but even using Tech 2 Legacy pass-through, it would air out. And we actually tried Tech 2 remote. I actually met up with him, brought my Tech 2, did Tech 2 remote, and that failed. So we went back to trying with a J-Box or the MDI version of it, and it would air out at different times. I'm not joking. We probably tried to program this thing more than 10 times, and then all of a sudden it went through. So my advice to you is if you're new to programming, be persistent. Don't give up. Do not turn the key off until you're ready to say, hey, there's nothing else I can do. Because most times you turn that key off if the software didn't finish programming. I guess maybe you guys can fill me in, those of you that are smarter than me. I've heard it's almost like a table of contents that gets written at the end of the programming, or the directory gets written at the very last step. Why they do it like that, I don't know. So if you stop programming in the middle and you turn the key off, it actually writes that, and it doesn't actually finish writing the table of contents. For some reason, when that file's left open and it hasn't been closed or hasn't been fully written, you can continue programming. So, guys, that's the tip there. In this instance, when SPS2 failed, the only option I could click on was a little option that said click to return to home. So I clicked on that, and I left the key on. I didn't turn the key off, but I did X out of TechLine Connect. I shut it all the way down, restarted it, and when I started SPS2 this time, instead of going to replace and reprogram, I went to reprogram, and I went to sequential for the TCM ECM, and it went through fine, no problems there. Next up, we had a 2007 Cadillac Escalade. This had a replacement Tecum in it, TCM 6-speed. Not a hard program there, but once again, I had some programming issues today with TLC. TechLine Connect was acting up. I actually called GM, and they verified that, yeah, it's down on their end. The technician or phone support person that I called actually said that he could not log into it, so he just made a report of that. It took me about 35 minutes before I could get this job started, but once I did, we were up and running. Guys, when I was on site at this job, I also took a relative compression test of this vehicle just for learning purposes. This data I'm capturing, and basically I'm building a lot of case studies that we're going to put into the relative compression video lesson that's going to be on the membership site, hopefully coming up soon. I'm trying to get at least 10 relative compression tests videotaped and recorded how I'm doing it on different known good vehicles, and then we can start looking at bad ones. After that job, we went over to a 2012 GMC Acadia. This vehicle was kind of odd. I was called out to program a fuel pump control module. I got on site. The technician installed a new module, dropped the car down. I turned the key to the run position, and this vehicle started cranking. It didn't start and run, but it just started cranking. I'm like, what's going on here? And I asked the shop about it. They're like, oh yeah, it does that. I'm like, okay. Next up, we're dealing with a fine quality GMC Acadia. I plugged everything in. I'm about to go do my job here, right? And I go to turn the key to the run position, and this thing just sits here and cranks. That's no good, huh? I might try and put it in neutral and program it. The shop's kind of like, well, we don't know what's wrong with it. I'm called out to do a program, not a diagnosis here. I am about to try and see if I can pop this into reverse. Oh, it still cranks even in reverse. Check that out. So even in reverse, this thing's sitting here cranking. I do have my foot on the brake. That's kind of messed up. Well, I'm not sure what to do here. I want to program the module, but I'm sure as heck not going to program it as the vehicle's cranking. And what was interesting here is it would crank even in reverse or drive. It continued to crank. So what I did is I pulled the crank relay to stop it from cranking. I went ahead and programmed the fuel pump control module. We got a warranty claim code, so I know the software's in there. Put that relay back in there. The vehicle continues to crank. It just cranks all the time. I started poking around. I spent maybe a few minutes just looking at general information. The first thing I wanted to do was go to the engine control module and see if we had a crank request. The crank request was no, and also the crank command was no, so this thing should not be cranking. Also, we went over and I perused the data in the TCM to make sure the Prindle stuff was okay as far as park neutral switches and also the, the Prindle switch A, B, C, and P. Those all look good. Next, we went over to the body control module to take a look at the power mode just to see what was going on there. At this point, it was time for me to tell the shop, hey, you got to pay me more money if you want me to diagnose it for you. Let me know what you want to do. But I did give them some insight. Here's what I'll be checking. This yellow wire that goes between the powertrain control module and the starter relay. The powertrain control module provides battery positive to this when the crank request is present. If we have battery positive on this wire at the PCM, the next thing I would probably do, I hate cutting wires, but I'd probably go 3 or 4 inches away from the PCM and cut that yellow wire and see if we still have battery positive on that circuit. If we do, on the relay side, then we know we have a short to positive on that section of circuit. I guess at this point you could also unplug the PCM and see if it still cranks. I'm thinking of all different ways of diagnosing it, but anyhow, the shop didn't want me to get involved with it, so I didn't. And I moved on to the final job of the day. Rounding out the day, we had a 2014 Ford Escape. This just had the solenoid and trans ID numbers that had to be programmed in there. Gravy chain job, no problems there. Guys, I'm glad I'm feeling better. I hope everybody's getting ready for a Merry Christmas. I think I have 1 or 2 jobs run out to do tomorrow, so I might throw a video up tomorrow. If I don't, you guys have Merry Christmas. If I do, I'll talk to you then. If not, I'll see you on Monday. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.